Thank you everybody for being here today. It's really exciting. It's my first time in Cluj, and I'm absolutely loving it. I've already planned my holiday to come back for any locals, so I will happily on the app take recommendations on where to go when I come back and be a full tourist. And what I want to do is talk to you around building the AI home that we need in Europe and also within Romania. This is where it tests whether I can use the right button to go forward. There we go. So I just want to tell you a little bit around my company, because that will give you some insight into my thinking around this. So you might get from my accent that I may not be from Romania originally. I'm actually from Manchester in the United Kingdom. And that's where our company started. So for many people who I've met who've really inspired me yesterday when we were engaging and seeing such great applications and ideas and use cases that can run on the technology that I've spent a very long time building. We started in Manchester and we grew through investment, and that was a really hard journey. And we bought things into the group that distracted us, and it was really nice to hear about the focus then, because for me nowadays that focus on execution and purpose goes a long way to driving us forward. And that's why I'm so passionate and purposeful about having the right infrastructure within Romania and within Europe so that we can succeed and have a win-win relationship between innovation and ideation and the amazing creativity that I see here and feel inspired by, as well as the platform to operate it on so that we can control both parts of the ecosystem and win-win and drive more investment and more growth in there. So you'll see there's a gap in the history there. And we then moved into global expansion. So we decided to get out of the UK. And by 2015, we opened a data center in Bucharest. And kind of the rest is history. We then grew. We went through new rounds of investment and funding. And now the business is Romania. So we're headquartered in Bucharest. We make all our decisions there. My leadership are with me in Bucharest. And we operate across multiple sites. So it's an interesting journey to get here from startup, working out what you need to do and how you can bring it to market, to multiple rounds of investment and private equity grilling nowadays, to where we are today. And so now our razor focus and my passion is very much around, okay, when I talk to businesses and individuals more so now, you've obviously got a huge amount in the media around what I describe as modern-day Luddites who are fearful of where we're going. But more and more, I either see individuals using AI without realizing it. You know, you look at Google, and they had that terrible moment of, my goodness, 60 or 70% of my search traffic has disappeared because it's going through OpenAI or Claude because we're asking more intelligent questions. Crikey. And then you had all these businesses in the back end going, I've got no organic traffic. What do? I've got to completely rewrite the way I structure myself on the internet. And so more and more the conversation that I'm seeing when I talk to business leaders is, okay, well, it's my competitive disadvantage. What am I going to miss out on? What am I going to lose by not being there and not taking part? And I'm seeing that shift more and more. Some intentionally, some out of fear, and some out of not realizing that they're already on the journey. There are so many use cases, and people in the room today can wax lyrical in far more depth and intelligence than I can about these. But I think when you look at where we are today and where we're going, it's really clear that there is a real amazing level of use cases and exploitation that we've achieved and are yet to come. And I love some of the talks yesterday. I get really excited about kind of futurologists when they talk about where we could be, about the things that we don't even know, the things that are a spark in someone's brain yet to happen. And that could be someone in this room, which again, really excites me. So when I look forward and backwards, I look at where we've been and where we're going on kind of the staircase of development. And I see that with a different lens, because what I see there is an increased demand in power, an increased need for cooling. Particularly here, I have to say I do struggle with the summers in Romania because I'm used to topping out at maybe 18 degrees. It's slightly warmer here, even in a cool spring. But I see that demand for that infrastructure, for that connectivity, that bandwidth, the availability of hardware, and I see all these pieces that both, I guess, terrify and inspire me, because I go, okay, we have challenges, particularly in the CEE region and in Europe, in meeting those demands. But it's an amazing opportunity where we can bring together the best talent to deliver. So I kind of see that staircase differently to many minds in the room who are more creative and innovative. And so when I look at it and I think about, well, what is going to limit us, or what is going to enable us to really grow and capitalize on the opportunity in front of us? Because if I talk about Romania specifically, we have so much opportunity. We have businesses that, rather than trying to, with the applications and tools that people in this room will go away and build today, tomorrow, and the day after, we don't need to displace an incumbent. We can take them on that journey for the first time, where in some markets that are maybe a little bit more mature, it's much more difficult to be disruptive because there are so many vested interests and incumbents. So that's why I think it's really exciting here. And so the 4 areas that I really focus on, one is governance, and there was a great talk yesterday around governance frameworks and how do we, for me this is, 1, how do we effectively regulate without limiting innovation? But 2, how do we ensure that everybody in society is a willing participant or comfortable with where we are going so that we have that buy-in? Because today there is too much uninformed resistance, and that's a job for governments to do and for big businesses and small businesses alike, and it was great to hear about some of that yesterday. The second piece for me, and I'm very passionate about this, I absolutely love learning, and the amount of presentations that I've been in over these days here, which are topics that are completely random to my normal life, but so inspiring and exciting. That's kind of the way that I approach every single day. If I haven't learned something in a day, it's not a good day, right? And so there are 2 parts around these skills. One is very much around how do we use these tools within organizations, not to slash and burn headcount, but to augment and improve. I think about this within my own business as, how do I find the best tools that enable my people to be brilliant, not enable me to walk around their office and go, oh, you 3, you can leave today because this machine has taken over from you. And I think there is too much fear created by that. And when you look at the huge technology companies that recently have let many people leave their organizations, very talented, amazing people, when you look at the rationale behind that, they're not saying I did that because this tool replaced my person. They're saying that because I need better cash flow to invest in the tool. So I think there's a very different element there around how we, within organizations, augment our skill set. But then more widely in society, how do we make sure that our citizens are ready to absorb? And what I mean by that is, when I was young, let's say 1 or 2 years ago, if I'm being really generous to myself, when I went to school, the winner was the person who could understand and recite facts. And it was all about photographic memory and knowledge. That was not a skill of mine, unfortunately. Nowadays, the skill that we need is the ability to ask questions, to understand what we don't know the answer to, but we need to ask. And also to understand that when we receive that information, we need to have the data fluency to work with it, or we need to have the critical thinking capability to understand, okay, I'm presented with this, but to what extent is it the truth? To what extent is it from an echo chamber? How do I make sure that I really understand what's in front of me so we don't become blind users? And so that's something that really excites me. I'm not quite sure how to do that more broadly, but within my team, it's a really big passion. And thankfully, I have a team of people who are constantly pushing on me saying, can we do this with? Can we do this with? Then when I move on to my more core area that I want to talk about, it then in the bottom half of this gets into the infrastructure, because whilst I see amazing innovation and the creation of applications and tools and use cases within Europe, I don't see enough in terms of how do we make sure that those amazing startups are enabled with the connectivity from a European player, from somebody who is local, who can work with you, who you can have a conversation with, and you can agree how you win together. Because startups and small businesses, they need support. It's so scrappy. It's so difficult to get there. And so I think there's a really big piece of work for us to do on how do we make sure that we connect ourselves. And we need more of this. So this is my network, for a shameless little pitch as I say this. But we need more businesses like this. And it doesn't need to be M247 Global, but we need more businesses that are centered in Europe and either bringing big players in to work with us or getting our products out there so that we have the availability to spin up capability wherever we need it, when we need it, and spin it down when we don't. So it's making sure that we keep hold of that. Hopefully this will go backwards for me now. The next bit is more around the physical infrastructure. And this is something that I talk a lot about and was only talking in May about the same topic. Since I started focusing on Romania, I really noticed a few challenges. I had a business here that hadn't grown. And the reason why it hadn't grown wasn't for demand. I had to turn away some major US tech giants from deployments that they wanted to make here. And why couldn't they? Well, they couldn't invest here and pay taxes here and support us because we didn't have the scale, we didn't have the investment. We had lots of words and little action. And so when we get into that infrastructure space, for me, that is about the land, the power, the cooling. And this is something I continually chirp on about and look envious at other deployments elsewhere. Now, this is not unusual to Romania, but the challenge for us in Romania is, I think, there are two opportunities. And those are, how do we build more? And how do we get the right investment in to build? But how do we also demonstrate that our creative and technology economy can contribute towards that? So how do we make sure that we have a virtuous cycle of investment? Because today we are massively underserved by what we need, and that will only get worse in the future. I mean, when I look at the kind of building that I'm doing within Romania right now, the scale of that is really dwarfed by, I'm building multiple locations, but the scale of that will be dwarfed by a single deployment in other parts of Europe. So we do need to move forward and make sure that we're able to facilitate that, because otherwise we will end up seeding our data and applications outside of Romania or outside of Europe. And for me, Romania is a really sweet spot, because you look geographically, we've got the opportunity to have overflow from the flat D Western region. We've also got the brilliance that we can be an entry point for the Middle East, and with uncertainty there, maybe Romania looks more exciting. The challenge is that today we can't quite unlock it because we're not there. And I think that, for me, one real takeaway from the conference this week has been about how to work with startups within Romania to support that growth and create that virtuous cycle so that we can bring more investment in. I mean, yesterday, some of the investment charts, for those of you who saw them, it was astounding when you saw how much goes into the US and then how little is then spread very thinly around Europe. So for me, when I think about Romania, and when I put my hat on as if I was going to go and do a startup right now, and I know there's many people in Cluj who are so innovative and excited and probably have 50 ideas written down, ready to go. I think the sweet spot for Romania is, we're not going to, or possibly not, never say never. I believe everything is possible with the right effort and time and persistence. But we may not build the next ChatGPT or Claude. But what we can do is, we've got amazing skills here around, for many years we've invested in tech skills. We've brought other companies in and focused on outsourcing tech skills. So there is a real willingness, and what I've really been amazed by in Cluj is an even greater willingness to take risk, which I find very exciting, because you bring here, there is opportunity, you've got intelligence and capability and creativity, and people who are willing to take a risk. And that's something that in many places you don't see enough of. And that's why I think there's some real excitement here. So it's then about, if I was going to do that, where would I deploy? if I take my infrastructure hat off. And for me, it's about the execution hub, and that's what I've seen so much of as I've been around and looked at some of the startups and had some really interesting conversations. It's about how do we utilize the tools being developed elsewhere. And one of my degrees that I studied at university was history, so I always like to kind of look back to the past. And so I kind of reference the Industrial Revolution. So the United Kingdom led the original Industrial Revolution and took all the pain and the cost, and it was traumatic for the people. But the next people and the next and the next, they learned from those mistakes, iterated and made it much better. There's an opportunity there for us here in the room to look at how do we apply that? How do we find those use cases that reduce friction for the consumer or reduce, improve effectiveness for the business? And I say effectiveness, not efficiency, because again, for me, this is not about removing people, because within my business, what I really want to achieve is that my team are able to make decisions quicker with more information, and that frees them up to spend more time talking with each other and being creative, or talking with customers, or talking with other people in the industry, so that we double down on human interaction, which I think we're losing too much of at the moment. Okay. So then, as I kind of wrap up my thoughts, and thank you for staying with me for this long, the intelligence and the applications and the tools that we're building today, they require physical infrastructure. And for me, as a passionate, I feel like rapidly becoming adopted Romanian, I just need to learn more Romanian. So any recommendations on a Romanian tutor would be helpful, because I need the pressure of someone challenging me each day. We should be building that infrastructure within Romania and within Europe, because what that then enables us to do is partner together, be flexible together, and succeed and grow together. And there should be a natural ecosystem partnership. We should not be in a world where we seed our data and our applications out to huge corporations where there isn't the relationship, where there isn't the flexibility, and you can't have that same level of interaction. We have the society and the skills, and that's a piece that we all need to come to terms with and work with government on, whether you're in business or in civil society. And as I've said, the foundations of that and my passion is about building that infrastructure and planning for the long term, because this is a long-term game, and the kind of capacity we need to build on, because I'm so confident in the people in the room and the ideas that I've seen, the capacity we need to build is for the long term, and it's at a scale much greater than we've ever seen. And I think we're making some good progress. You know, for me, over the last 4 or 5 years, I've struggled to grow and invest in infrastructure in Romania because the capacity hasn't been there, predominantly power. I'm now building 3 at the same time. So for me, this is where, and in the middle, insert, obviously, I've put M247 because that's my business, but insert any local business that has been through that experience of growing from where many of you are today to being a growing player. We've still got a lot of growth to do. You know, we're a team of just over 100 people based out of Bucharest, so we're still a nice size to engage with. But for me, it's about the reach. So making sure that you partner with somebody who will help you have that reach outside of the local market, who will help you get your application wherever it needs to be or your workload. It's the piece of, as well, control. It's the ability to make sure that you partner with somebody that as you scale, I felt this pain, as you scale, you are so happy chasing that revenue that you maybe aren't looking behind you and the costs really bite you, and your vendors and suppliers have not supported you because they're in it for one reason. They don't see the long term. And that's where I'm really proud that there are lots of small businesses that have worked with me in the past, and we've grown as a partnership because when they grow, we all win. And the final piece is sovereignty. And I know that's a huge buzzword, but there are so many buzzwords nowadays. But it's about being able to control that data and that application within Romania or within Europe. That is so important when you are there talking to investors who have so many fears, because many of those investors may not, if I think of my investors, have a background in technology or anything near. So my investors They own things from garden centres through to big tech, through to watch manufacturers. They don't know, but what they do here is the fear, and it's making sure that you're looking for those fear points with those potential investors and unwinding them, and that's where I think a local partner can help. So I'm going to wrap up and give you all a few minutes back, which is good. I think AI does need a home, absolutely. I think that home, that infrastructure, that connectivity and reach, that resilience, and that sovereignty can be achieved within Romania. I think can be achieved within Europe as well. I don't think we're doing a good enough job today. And that's work for myself, for government, and for all of us in the room to partner. And the thing that really excites me, and I want to end it with a real positive, because there's plenty of challenge in everything that we do. But for me, we have the talent within Romania, definitely. We have the ambition, and I mean, I wrote these slides a couple of weeks ago. Since I've been in Cluj, my God, the ambition I see and the risk-taking is fantastic, and that excites me. And the opportunity's there. So there's a real great point to create a virtuous cycle of growth between the applications and utilization of what is out there, and creating that infrastructure and that long-term investment within our country. So thank you very much. I appreciate the time. And as I say, I will be here all day. If you've got any questions, come and ask me, or send me a message on the app, particularly if you have recommendations of tourist spots in Cluj, because I definitely need to spend some more time here. Thank you very much, everybody.